Hey guys, welcome to TST Garage. I'm Bart. In this episode, I have a beautiful new S1000RR in the shop with me. This is the newest generation, 23 Plus. As you may know, the previous generations were already served by our brand with tail lighting elements and also fender eliminator elements and some other parts you may have seen on our website or around in the streets. Now, new bike's out. It is half a year later. We are here to bring you the new parts that we've developed for this particular generation. In front of me, you'll notice the tail lighting elements. This is an inclusive kit to replace the lamps that come off with the fender when you remove the fender. They have the running, brake, and signaling right in them, and they are also universal to the world. In some areas in the world, you have amber signals. In some areas, like the Americas, you have red signals. It's just a matter of wiring it differently. And by wiring, I mean it's all plug and play. It's just a configuration change, and we will show you how to do that in the installation flow. On my right, your left, you'll see the fender eliminator components. They are based in a closeout system that replaces the fender when it comes off. The fender comes off, there's a big void. It allows debris and water to come in. You want to have that area nice and cosmetic, sleek, sexy, sport-like, and also prevent the debris from coming in. This will do that for you. If you're choosing the low mount bracket for your license plate, that will live here, and therefore this will just be installed on its own in that void. If you're choosing our Elite One adjustable fender eliminator that mounts up here, the high mount, this chunk will build into this form and it'll assemble onto this component and then assemble onto the bike. Now, when you ditch the fender, you ditch your tail light, you ditch your signals, and also your license plate light. The tail light and signals will be replaced by these components. The license plate light is a separate kit. Some people choose to run it, some people don't. We do provide it, but it is a separate kit, so make sure you choose that and drop it into your cart when you're checking out. It is plug and play. It'll plug into your harness via the OEM connector, and then this will thread through the entire setup. It's different for the low mount and the high mount, so we will show you the routing for each. And then this is very intuitive. You just get these wires hooked in there, snap them shut, plug it in, that's it. We pride ourselves on providing plug and play, easy to install components. We also make these nice videos for you so you can do this installation at home with very basic tools. If you're already working on your bike, this will be a breeze for you. We'll just break this down into very easy to follow steps and we'll take it from there. In this episode, we will be focusing on installing the tail lighting components using all of the provided hardware and the connectors, and we'll get to these sets in separate videos, so please look for those on our YouTube channel or our website, tstindustries.com. Step one will consist of removing the license plate and its hardware, followed by removing passenger seat or seat cowl, whatever your bike comes equipped with. Next, using a T25 Torx wrench, we are going to remove the single fastener holding down the driver's seat. Then the seat comes off. Now we have access to all of the hardware here. We will be removing the following fasteners: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Before we get to that, I will cut through the zip ties holding down the tail lighting connectors. Once they are cut, they need to be removed. Freeze these guys from their captive spots. I will unroute the wires from the catches in the shroud here. So now the tail light signal components are off. This is the license plate light that also has to come off. Okay, all the wiring is off. So I'll grab my T25 again, and I will move from these forward I do want to point out that these two are different than the remaining 4. They have a longer shoulder, so make sure that you get the longer shoulder screws in this location. All right, now let's disconnect some of the captive connectors between this panel and the tail panel. You basically deform it on a rotating motion outward, and that unsnaps it. And then we will move towards the back here. I'll get my fingertips in the split between the upper tail and lower tail and pry up to release the clip fasteners. Once the rear ones pop, you just move on your way forward. I like to release one at a time. Now I will remove the top tail section. Now we've gained access to the inside here. Let's first remove these connectors. They do have little windows here in the bottom female portion of the connector that hold the male side captive. You just pry up on this a very slight bit. Do not deform it too far. You'll likely stress it here. You just want to unlock the little ratcheting element. These clear out pretty easy. And then this last Hirschman one here. There is a window here that we need to pry up on. And that comes off. Good to go. Let's jump down and perform the steps from the bottom. Once again, using our T25, we will be removing these 2 fasteners here. First one comes down, no sweat. And second one, once we start working with the second one, we'll start supporting the fender with our hand, making sure that it doesn't just drop off. So these 2 fasteners is all it takes. Once they are out, the fender just comes down, and during installation it tabs in forward, so we move it in the reverse fashion. Comes down, we just snake the wires through, and now the disassembly is complete. All right, in the first step of the taillight installation, let's remove these screws from these locations here. They require T25 Torx. In this following step, we will be removing these 2 fasteners here and here. These are the receiving fasteners from the screws that came in through the bottom of the undertail. We will no longer need these. Let's now bring our right taillight component into view. You can clearly see that this is the one that fits in here. I'll grab the wire and feed it through the bottom. This is a small, roughly 6mm hole, so the connectors can bunch up on you, but you can be very careful here and still pass it through. And now we'll need to fit the taillight stud through the 2 layers of plastic components here on the tail and sub tray. Once that is through, we are ready for the washer and the lock nut. Now, the washer has a substantial large hole here, so it will likely fit over, no issue. The lock nut, on the other hand, has a much smaller hole and it's threaded, so we will need to feed 2 connectors in first, and then the third one. Still fairly simple, no sweat. Careful around our several layers of shielding elements here. Now once you reach the thread, that goes on. It's pretty loose until you reach the nylock locking element, and then you will need a wrench. So we'll require a 10mm open-ended wrench. I'm holding the light up as I'm turning this in. It will be very important not to overstress this connection. The nylock element within the nut prevents the nut from spinning off, so this thing does not need to be torqued down. You need to get this to bottom. You'll have to feel that out. Once this starts tightening up on you, you start feeling resistance, leave it, move it up and down. If you have no movement left within the lamp up and down, that'll be that. If you still have a little bit, just tighten it up a little bit. If you over tighten this, you will likely damage the connection between the overmolded stud and the housing, so you don't want to do that. Be very careful and you'll have success. Let's repeat the steps on the other side of the bike. If you've tightened down your light and you notice some weird gaps, uneven gaps between front and rear, you can loosen it just a little bit. You can also loosen both sides, reconfigure the undertail just a little bit, and then attempt to tighten this back down. It'll likely fit a lot better for you. The plastic components on this bike do have some adjustability in them, so there is no one set way of configuring this. If you want to take up some gaps, please loosen up, reconfigure, tighten it back down, and you will reach that nicely even gap all around. All right, let's grab the connectors and talk about what to do to get these things connected electrically. All right, so we are going to consider the connection, the electrical connection, one side at a time here. We will grab one of the pigtails from our kit. They are both the same, so no worries there. We'll grab 3 heat shrinks. And from our website, I've printed out the 2 different connection schemes that we have. So you can see we have one for the EU, Australian, and Asian market. That's for the market that has the amber signal lights. And the American market only has red lights, so running light, brake light, and signals are all red. That's how you determine which version you need. Since this is a bike from the United States, we will use this scheme. First, I will unroll some of this shielding here so that I have enough space to slip the heat shrink over for my connection and then back over the metal connectors, the conductors themselves, so that we could shrink it down. I'm going to grasp it by the heat shrink here, and once you have about 2.5 inches, 3 inches exposed, you can get the heat shrinks on it. This tubing fits on tightly, but it's not cumbersome, so no big deal. We did design this light to be coated between the ground and the positive wires so that you don't have any potential possibility of wiring this in a way that'll blow a fuse. So first we'll match the black to black. That's always the case for every market. So we have male on the pigtail side and female on the taillight side. Now for the positive wires, that reverses. That way you don't ever have the possibility of putting the ground into a positive. So for American markets, we have blue to red and gray to yellow. If you were wiring this for the other than American market, you would just reverse these two, resulting in gray into red, and then blue into yellow. And then you would move your heat shrinks over and proceed with the steps as I'm about to show. I'm going to return to the American version because that is what this bike is. You can see here, I have my heat shrinks in position. Tubing will need to overlap enough of the wire on each side so that there is no chance of the conductor being exposed and causing a short. And that looks good to me. I'm going to go ahead and shrink it down. You can use a lighter, or if you have access to a nice heat gun, that is also a very nice tool to use here. I've been asked this question several times over the span of the last generation of this bike. Why did we choose to have these connectors interface this way and have a heat shrink over it, making it cumbersome to uninstall? Well, we wanted to make sure that the installation of the actual taillight doesn't require any modifications to the bike itself. I know a lot of you guys do not want to grind into any of these fancy, expensive components, so we provided a way to pass everything through without modification, just requiring that you perform this step. I feel if you ever need to remove these lamps and reinstall them later, this stuff is so cheap, available at every auto parts store, hardware store. You know, it'll cost you cents, no big deal. Now we will continue with the installation. I'm going to milk out the slack here. Make sure that you don't pull by this section here because you will likely pull this off the braided sleeve. I like to work out the slack in the sleeve and push that forward with the fatter section that is actually on top of the sleeve itself on the braid. Once you've taken up all the slack, this is ready to be plugged in. I will not be powering this bike up until I have both signals, taillights in. So now you'll see me perform these steps on the other side of the bike. Okay, now we are ready to power this up. The bike will still flash on the dash an error code for no license plate light, but it will not flash an error code for the tail lighting. And we want that because if it does, tail lighting will shut back off. So let's go ahead and test it now once I take up this slack. All right, we have brake and running light. We have signaling. Good to go. All right, so now let's make sure that we have proper routing here so we are successful. Once we have the top tail on, this wire will need to run forward of this slanted section. You can jam it down in between this connector and the sub tray for now. This will lay in, capture with all the little catches that were provided by the manufacturer, and then we'll distribute the bulk and move forward. One note about this license plate light, I will show the routing of the license plate light and then the connection of license plate light or the license plate light dummy plug that takes up this connector, prevents the error on the dash, but doesn't require you to run a license plate light. I will show that in the fender eliminator video, so we will not consider that in this flow. That is captured in those other videos that you can watch on our YouTube channel or tstindustries.com. I'm gonna align the forward section here so that it goes under these components. Once I have all of the assembly tabs lined up. I'll make sure none of these wires will interfere anywhere. Don't want to clamp over those. And then we could just pop those snaps together. In the forward section, I will get the engagement between this panel and this panel done. I start with the outboard and I press in on top. That engages them. And now let's distribute this bulk here. We will want to have the connector pair here. We'll have to run a little zip tie in here. We actually provide 2 zip ties with this kit. So once I route it, I'll show you how to get that in there. This is all nice. Let's just take up the bulk, making sure that we don't have stuff hanging out. If you're like me, you like your wiring really neat and out of the way, factory looking. Now I'll grab that zip tie and typically it's pretty difficult to target it right in here. So what I like to do, if I'm not successful on the first try, I'll roll this guy around like so with needle nose pliers, and that helps me target it up through here. Distribute it properly. It does have a little window that is molded into this component to signify where this should live. And I like to keep the head of the zip tie, the ratcheting head, to the side. Take up my slack, make it nice and tight. Then get rid of the excess. And just repeat on the other side. All right, everything's looking good here. Going to install the license plate light connector in this place. Obviously, if you are doing the fender eliminator installation, you will not be installing the top of the tail before getting to those steps. If you need to watch those steps, those videos are available on tstindustries.com or our YouTube channel. But for the installation flow here, we'll just replace the parts, and then that'll be the end of this video. I did go over this during the removal, but I will go over it again because it's an important detail. The rearmost screws here have the longer shoulder, like so. Shorter ones look like this. There are 4. The shorter ones go to the front. All right, I have all the fasteners in. I'm going to go close to bottom out on those fasteners. Check to make sure I do not have any excessive gaps that will need to be taken up via adjustment of body components before we go to full tighten. Everything's actually looking really good, so I'm going to tighten it all up. Now we'll grab the front seat, get it into position. It tabs in under the tank and then pivots down. Place the fastener. Now the shroud goes into position, or your passenger seat snaps in, and now the installation is complete. So we've concluded the installation of the BMW S1000RR taillights on this bike. As you can see, I've allowed myself to install another kit on here, our Elite 1 fender eliminator, the low mount version. I just wanted to show off a complete installation. Obviously, these components are not part of the lighting kit, but you will find those on our website, tstindustries.com, as well as the rear mount version. Whatever's your flavor, we've got it for you. Let's give this thing one more test. All right, we've got the lighting on. It's going through the self-test. Running light is working. Brake light is working. Signals look sick. All right. The installation flows for our fender eliminators are captured in separate videos. We have one for the low mount, we have one for the high mount. You can find those at tstindustries.com or our YouTube channel. This will conclude our presentation here. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you like what we've done here with this bike. I really love it. It really sets off the bike. This is what the bike looked like before, and now it's a sleek, sexy, race-inspired machine. If you agree with me, check out tstindustries.com. You can drop these products in your cart, make the color selections, customize the different kits together, and set up your bike like you see here. I like comments. Please leave me some comments in the feed below. Hit like and subscribe. And that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching again. Ride safe. See you later.